The .308 Winchester, the world's greatest long-range sniper round, the world's most inherently accurate cartridge? No, it's not. Well, the .308 Winchester does have a reputation for those two things and a few more. But a deeper investigation suggests that might not be all it's cracked up to be. Now, before you throw me to the wolves here, hear me out. I want to discuss the .308 Winchester and settle maybe once and for all exactly what it does do and doesn't do, because it does a lot of great things. I think it's just been overhyped too much. So I have compiled a little list of what the .308 Winchester is not. And we're going to go down that list and talk about it a little bit. Then you can argue with me. So first of all, contrary to conventional wisdom, the .308 is not as fast and powerful as the .30-06. I mean, you hear this all the time, but it is just not possible. I mean, look at, well, let's just compare the sizes here. Look at the differences. That .308 is a ½ inch shorter than the .30-06. Same diameter, same body size, but it's shorter, has less powder. How could it possibly match the ballistics of the .30-06? And of course, it doesn't. And we will look at some charts and just see what some of those ballistics are. I don't know if I want to compare it against the .30-06 or something else that's even better. But we'll get to some charts. But for now, we just need to know that the .30-06 was kind of the original from which the .308 sprang. Now, a lot of people will say, oh no, that's not right. That .308 Winchester was formed from the .300 Savage. And that's kind of sort of true. Let me tell you exactly what happened. I think, I wasn't there, I missed it by a year or two. After World War II, the military brass decided they needed a shorter, smaller, more convenient cartridge than the .30-06. The case on this thing is just about 2½ inches long. They wanted something shorter, and I think this is our Savage right here. They already knew about this Savage because the .300 Savage had been around since 1920. And they thought, you know, that's awfully close to the .30-06. It shoots the exact same bullets. It's a .308, but it's got a shorter case and it'll run through a shorter action. And what they were really looking for was efficiency, especially in all the ammo that they had to pack around. When you're fighting a war, it's logistics and moving all that equipment around. And even when you get down to the individual soldier in the field, how much ammunition can he carry? Because when you run out, you're in big trouble. So they were thinking efficiency. So we need a cartridge that's going to do the job, that's going to render the enemy out of action, but not weigh so much, and maybe even reduce the recoil a little bit so the soldiers could shoot more effectively. So that's what they were looking for. Let's take a hard look at that .300 Savage. And of course, Savage was hoping they would just pick that thing up and that would become the new military round and they would be in high clover. But they started snooping around and testing different things, and I think most of the work was done at the Franklin Arsenal. But the engineers decided there was just something about that .300 Savage they didn't quite like, something about the taper, and I don't quite understand that because it doesn't look like it has much taper to me. Maybe it didn't have enough taper, but it has a 30-degree shoulder, which is like the latest and greatest. And it's a short action, so I think if you introduced it today, it'd be a real winner. But most people have forgotten about it because eventually the .308 took over. But because of that taper thing, they thought, you know, all we have to really do, because we love the taper of the .30-06, is just shorten it. And then we've got our .308. So whether they actually took the .06 case and shortened it, or they took the .300 Savage, I don't think it matters a lot, because they're all the same at the base. 0.473 inch is the diameter of that rim, and the body size is 0.470. Now, I see in a few hand-loading manuals that will list that Savage having a body just at the head of 0.471, which suggests even more that the .308 came from the .30-06. But really, it doesn't matter. It's just pretty much the same case, and it's a short action. So the poor Savage lost out, and the .308 just was the winner. And it went on from there. Now, Winchester, I think, was involved. There may have been other ammo companies involved in this research. I think they were just trying to drag everybody in and see who had great ideas. When Winchester saw what they had done with that basic 308, they thought, you know, rather than waiting for the government red tape to run out on all this stuff, we think that's such a great idea. Let's just grab it, make it a commercial cartridge. So right off the bat, in 1952, Winchester announced this as their latest cartridge for the general shooting public. The military didn't come along for several years. NATO grabbed it, 7.62 by 51 NATO cartridge that's still around, but they didn't do that until about 1954 or 55, and I don't think it was until 1957 that the U.S. military, any branch of it, grabbed it for a military round, and then they stuck it in, I think, the M14. But by the time they did, it was probably, what, 57, 58, and gee, that AR-15 was coming along already. So 3 or 4 years later, here comes the AR-15 in the 223 Remington. And this guy is really, where does he fit? But it is hung around and it was used for lots of specialty applications in the military. A lot of different rifles built for our military as well as NATO allies. And police eventually picked it up and it became a popular sniper round. We're going to get into that sniper stuff a little bit later because I think it not all that great as a sniping round, yet it's so popular as one. What is going on? We'll get to that. But you just need to know that even though it's wonderfully efficient, any bullet that you shoot in the 308 Winchester, shoot that same bullet in the 30-06 and it's going to go anywhere from 100 to 200 feet per second faster. Because, well, the water capacity on this guy is about 10 or 12 grains more than this one. You can just see that by looking at it. A half-inch difference in the length of those cases makes a big difference in your powder capacity. Can't be helped, guys. A lot of people will say the 308 Winchester is the 30-06 short. And when you look at it, I think you pretty much have to agree that's what it is. But still does a great job, and we'll get into the ballistics here in a bit. Now, what about this idea that it's inherently accurate? Almost everyone believes that. It's just like, this is an accurate cartridge. I don't think that accuracy is really much to do with the cartridge, the shape of the cartridge, or there's nothing magical about that. It's just a powder reservoir. Why would this one be any more accurate than this one or any of the other ones? Why does it have this incredible reputation for accuracy? Here's what I think happened. When it came out, some bench rest shooters who are always looking for an edge to the competition thought, you know, a 308 bullet has a pretty high BC. It resists air drag, and then it doesn't drift as much in the wind, and that's one of the big problems with bench rest shooting for groups is the wind blows your bullet a little too much. So they wanted a high BC bullet, and the 308 offered it without all the recoil they were getting because they were shooting target groups with 30-06s and 300 H&H Magnums and even 300 Win Mags. But gosh, who wants to withstand all that on the shoulder? So they started shooting at 308. And as they started shooting some really good groups with it, the manufacturers caught on and said, hey, everybody's interested in this 308 all of a sudden. Let's build some heavy-barreled target-style rifles for it. They built the rifles. Other shooters came along and thought, wow, all these target rifles are chambered for the 308. That must be a great, accurate cartridge. They bought the rifles. They bought the ammo. The ammo company said, everybody's buying 308. We better make some really good ammo. And I think they started intentionally designing or building really accurate cartridges. And I think that's the key to accuracy. The cartridge has to be consistent and straight and have good primers in it and the best powder for the bullet that you're shooting and exactly the right amount to keep your deviations down to a minimum. You just build the best target grade ammunition you can. And then they're chambering it in match grade chambers in those target rifles. Doesn't take long and the reputation is there. That is an accurate cartridge. No, it's accurate ammunition placed in accurate rifles, and that's why it became so popular as a target shooting accuracy load. It's how everything is put together, not inherently the cartridge itself. Doesn't much matter because if you've got a 308 rifle that's got a match grade barrel and you buy match grade ammunition, you're probably going to get match grade performance. So there's a benefit right there. Now, there's some ideas that this is, of course, the superior sniper round because everybody uses it in the military as a sniper round, right? Well, not really. There are a lot of sniper rifles in the 308 or the 7.62 NATO, but I think it's mostly because everybody had rifles in that. I mean, if your military rifle is chambered for that and not the 7mm 08 or the 270 or anything else, what are you going to use? You're going to tune up that rifle and use it as a sniping rifle, or build a special sniping rifle around the ammunition that you already have. And then you're going to build some special bullets for it, some 173 or 175 grain sniper bullets, and off you go. And then the police find out about it and they say, you know, the military uses a 308, so let's do it. And most of the police sniper rifles became 308 Winchesters. It feeds on itself. But what is the long-range potential of that? Not so great. This is where we need to look at some ballistic charts. And I am going to compare the 308's long-range sniper-style ballistics against, once again, that cartridge we all love to hate, the 6.5 Creedmoor, because it is a superior long-range sniper cartridge. Let's look at the tail of the tape. By the way, you may have noticed my really pretty little boxes for my ammo right here. A lot of people have been asking about that. I got them as a Christmas present, and you can get your own from Open Range Creations. I'm reading it right here on the bottom. This is just a gentleman retired who loves to do woodworking, and he found a good supply of really nice chunks of walnut. So he's making boxes to order, and you can get them in all kinds of sizes. He's got magnets in there, and as you can see, I mean, that's a full box of 308s, and it's not opening up because of the magnets he has up in the top. I just love these things. They're so classy looking, too. What a guy like me has with them, I don't know, but they're nice. If you're interested, just go, I think you go, yeah, here it is, www.openrangecreations.com. openrangecreations.com. And if you'd rather call, he has his phone number right here, 831-917-9173. And if you tell him that you saw it here, Ron Spomer Outdoors, or just put RSO in there as a code, I think he'll give you about 5% off. I'm going to see if I can't talk him into giving 10% off, but just see what he'll do for you. But these are all custom. You can get them in all sorts of sizes, 20 rounds, 50 rounds, 100 rounds. You tell him what you want and he'll build it. I like this little guy right here for carrying in my pocket. Just 3 rounds in this one. Slide it in your pocket for a day of hunting. And if you want a little bit thicker one, he's got it with 6 rounds. I mean, they're just great. And man, do they look classy. So check him out, openrangecreations.com. Great ammo boxes. All right, here are the printouts. Now you guys can follow along. I'm going to put these up on the screen. So we're going to be comparing in the 308 Winchester, a 168 grain Berger hybrid target bullet. It has a pretty high BC of .519. So I'm trying to optimize what this 308 can do. In the Creedmoor, we're going with kind of the standard. It's a 142, 143 grain bullet. The BCs on those are usually about .625. And then we're going to push that at 2,750 feet per second, which is kind of right there in the factory loads for the 6.5 Creedmoor. And in the Winchester, I consulted some reloading manuals and guides. And what did I come up with for launch velocity? 2,690 feet per second. It's one of the problems with the 308, of course, is because it's got a small powder volume. You get those heavier bullets on it to get your BC up, and then you start losing velocity. So there's a trade-off, but pretty good option there. So 2690 versus 2750. Look at the chart, go down the range chart. You get your 100 yards, 200 on down. You can see. Now I zeroed both of these for 250, which does not maximize either one of them. As you'll see on that 6.5 Creedmoor, it never peaks at 150 yards more than 3.4 inches. Maybe it'll go 3.5 at some point, but that's kind of the peak of its elevation. And I've got the 308 going a little higher, 3.72 at 150 yards. So they're not balanced for maximum point blank range. That's one of the issues you come up with when you zero for a specific yardage and don't get your maximum point blank range. Not a huge deal, but it is giving the benefit on the numbers here to the 308. Nevertheless, you get to 300 yards and you look at your drops in that second column and they're pretty close. 3.92 on the 6.5 versus 4.3. So it's like If you're hunting or target shooting out to 300 yards, you don't have to worry much about the drops. You can easily compensate for that. Now, slide over to the left 2 columns, get past that green elevation. You've got in minutes of angle. The next elevation column is in mils for mil radians. You can skip that if you don't understand it and just jump to the windage in inches, because we can all understand inches. You know, unless you're from Europe and you need centimeters. But we're going with inches, and this is the wind drift in inches with a 10-mile-an-hour right angle wind, 6.34 inches on the 308 at 300 yards, and almost 1.5 inches left, just over 5 inches for the 6.5 Creedmoor. So already we're seeing the advantage in wind, and this makes a big difference when you're reaching out there, guys. When you're going long range, you can figure your drops because gravity is consistent. But man, if you don't nail that wind, you start to lose out. So we want to be tight on the wind. Let's jump out to 500 yards, slide over to the windage column at 500 yards, and we're looking at 18.8, almost 19 inches of wind deflection in that 308, but the little old 6.5 only has about 15, just under 15, so we're gaining again. Then just go on down that chart. By the time you get out to 1,000 yards, which is pretty long range in my life, the windage difference is 68 versus 90. That 308 is blowing 90, almost 90.5 inches in the wind, and it's a lot less at 68. So if you're target shooting and you're blowing that much difference, you guess the wind wrong, you're going to win that game with the 6.5 Creedmoor, not the 308 Winchester. That's why I don't think it's the world's greatest long-range sniping round or even target round. It just doesn't have the horsepower. It runs out of gas, and that's why I think its future is a little dimmer than it used to be. Now, we'll get to some reasons why it should still hang around here in a little bit, but you've got to admit what the truth is on this ballistic stuff, because it's what happens. Now, some guys will say, well, you know, a great reason to have a 308 is because it's less expensive. The ammo's everywhere, and it's a lot less expensive than all the other cartridges. I just never quite understood that. I always thought ammo was pretty much similarly priced for the same size load. So I did a little research, got online. Of course, there was no ammo available anyway. It was all back ordered, but the prices were right in there. And I made my handy dandy little notes right here, and I saw that the 308s were selling for anywhere from $18 for the inexpensive stuff up to a peak of about $44 for some high bullets. I mean, if you get the controlled expansion expensive bullets, that's where you're going to pay more. So then I checked a 30-06, which should run a little more because it has more powder in it, right? Well, the 30-06s were going for $18, but they went up to $54 for the high-end stuff. And then I thought I might as well check some others, and I looked at the 6.5 Creedmoor, the 708 Remington, and the 270 Winchester, and they were all pretty much the same prices as the 308, somewhere from $20 to $40 a box. So I just don't see where that's valid. But there is a lot of inexpensive military surplus type ammunition around, and a lot of people will hand load the old military brass and do a little business with some rebuilds and just slap them together pretty quickly. You're not going to get high quality match grade ammunition out of that. But for just practice, you know, just shooting, plinking around, you could probably get some pretty inexpensive stuff that way. So there is that. Now, the last one I have got down here on my list is, this is the most popular cartridge in the USA. You know, it's always said for years and years that the 30-30 Winchester has taken more deer than any other cartridge. Whether or not anyone can prove that, I don't know. But this thing's been around since 1895, so it probably has done quite a number. But the 308 Winchester's been around since 52. A lot of people have used that. And whether or not it's taken more deer than anything else, the numbers at the sales clerk, that's what tells what's popular. And this guy is not the most popular in the cartridge, but it's a number 2. The 223 Remington takes first place most years. This is pretty consistently the second most popular. And it's because so many people knew it in the military and shoot it for that reason. And the sniper rifle idea is just gets shot a lot for targets and stuff. You know, it doesn't have the recoil of the bigger 300s. I mean, look at some of the 30s here. These are all 30s on the table. And after you get done, except for the 6.5, obviously, but got done with the Savage there and the 30-30, and you've got, of course, your 30-06, and a lot of people think that's about as much recoil as I want to handle, but 300 Win Mag is pretty much revered as a great big game cartridge for anything in the world, and it certainly is. Obviously, it's pushing about 200 feet per second more than the 30-06. And then you've got these days things like this 300 Rum, just a monster cartridge right there. But who wants to target shoot with something like that? So that's why the 308 hangs in there. But most popular, I heard last year the most popular selling cartridge was the 6.5 Creedmoor. They sold more ammo on that than they did on the 308. I don't know if that includes the 223 Remington or not, but it really doesn't matter whether it gets sold a lot and it's really, really popular or not. If you like it, that's what matters. And now I want to talk about what's good about the 308 Winchester. Why would you want to hang on to this or even buy a new one? If you're out in the market looking for a good cartridge for hunting and target shooting as a mix, maybe you do want to consider that 308. Let's look at some good reasons to have a 308 Winchester. All right, guys, this is the one I call 308 Winchester Magic. Of course, it's not magic, but there's some pretty good things going on with this cartridge. First of all, it's a short action. Everybody loves short action, so if you want a short action cartridge, that's the one that started it all. Yeah. Moderate recoil, we've already talked about that. Definitely a benefit. A wide variety of bullets. You know, the 30 caliber, you've got all kinds of bullets. You can get as light as 100 grain plinker, and then you can get up to 230, and I think they even have some 250 grain bullets these days. You rarely see anything heavier than a 180 to 190 on a 308 in factory loads. A few times you'll find a 200. You know, the really heavy ones that have those high BCs for extreme range shooting on the bigger 300 cartridges, you're just not going to see them on a 308. But some hand loaders find that they can work pretty well with those. So it's an option. And there's a wide variety of bullet types. You get your target bullets, your plinking bullets. You can get full metal jacket, inexpensive stuff. You can get some really fancy controlled round expansion, big game hunting bullets, bonded, partition styles, all sorts of options, because it's the 30 caliber. If they make it for the 30-06 and a 300 Win Mag and the Rum, it's the same bullet. You can use that hand loaded in your 308. Lots of factory ammunition available. Every factory manufactures ammunition, manufactures for 308 Winchester. So you can pretty much get it in any brand with lots of different bullet options right from the factory. And when you go down to the store looking for it, if that's the way you buy your ammo, probably going to have some 308 on hand. Except for this year, they don't have anything on hand. It's also available in a lot of factory rifles. So if you like brand X over brand Y over brand Z and a lever action instead of a slide action, instead of a bolt action, instead of a break action, you name it, there will be one chambered for a 308 Winchester. The brass is common and abundant, obviously, with all that shooting going on. And you can use that brass to make other cartridges. The 308 is the parent cartridge of the 7mm 08, the 260 Remington, the 243, the 338 Federal, the 358 Winchester, and then a lot of Wildcats. So, man, you get that case and you can do a lot with it. Versatile applications. Obviously, this is going to be a versatile cartridge with all those bullet selections. If you load it down in power and put a 100, 110 grain bullet on there, that's pretty reasonable small game bullet for headshots. So you can stay in tune with your hunting for rabbits and squirrels using a light little plinking bullet like that. Hardly any powder, it's inexpensive, something not a lot of people do, but the option is certainly out there. That's what the old muzzleloaders were able to do back in the day. They just lightened up the load and they could shoot without burning a lot of powder and suffering a lot of recoil. You can still do that if you hand load. Long barrel life. This is one that you really have to give the blue ribbon to the 308 on. Because it has a small capacity of cartridge and a large diameter bore, you're not having anything close to overbore. This is one of the most efficient cartridges out there. And barrel life is pretty commonly at 5,000 to as many as 10,000 rounds. And I hear of people who are still shooting fairly accurate 308s after 15,000 rounds have gone through them. So if you're looking for a rifle that's going to last a long time, 308 might be your baby. And finally, I think you could just call this thing the Goldilocks cartridge, because It's not too big, it's not too small, it's not too powerful, it's not too weak. It's not the greatest in any one category except for maybe efficiency. It's Goldilocks, just right. The 308 Winchester. So that's the tale of the 308 Winchester. Whether you believe it or not, I don't know, but you can double check my statistics and please write in and argue with me. If you think I got it wrong, tell me what else is right or wrong with the 308 Winchester, because it is surely a popular cartridge. Now, I would invite you to subscribe to our channel, of course. We always like to have you do that. And you can join us on Patreon. We've got a Patreon community. Those folks help us make videos like this. We really appreciate all the patrons we have. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, a lot of the social media sites. I write for a lot of different magazines, both in paper format and online. And of course, you can find us at ronspomeroutdoors.com, where I write about this stuff. And I have an article coming out on this 308 Winchester with more details about what we just talked about. So maybe you can read up on that in that site and compare it to some of the other cartridges that I cover at ronspomeroutdoors.com. So once again, I thank you for watching and invite you to always hunt honest and shoot straight.